Have you broken trust with yourself again and again after staying in toxic relationships way beyond the point that you should have left? Today, I'll show you how to build self-trust from the ground up after a lifetime of self-abandoning in relationships so that you can be certain you will never self-abandon again. I spent years self-abandoning in my romantic relationships and clinging on to toxic relationships that were so incredibly harmful to me. And I really had no concept of self-trust. When I learned these steps that I'll show you today, I learned a healthy inner discernment to know which voices inside to listen to and which not to. And I now trust myself to always act in my best interest and set healthy boundaries and walk away if something isn't right for me. And if you want to learn this skill of self-trust so you have that level of discernment, I invite you to book a call with me because this is the work that I do. I'd love to unpack where you're at and to see how I can help guide you on your next stage of your journey. Let's start by looking at what self-trust actually is. What do I mean when I'm talking about self-trust? Self-trust is two parts of a whole process. Firstly, it's knowing what is best for you and always acting in accordance with that, okay? Now, there are two challenges here. Firstly, the challenge is to know what is best for you, right? You might be hazy or uncertain, or you don't know yourself well enough and you have uncertainty around what is right for you because there is a lifetime of ignoring parts of yourself or listening to others or valuing what others say. So there's that challenge, and the other challenge of acting in alignment with that, because often the hardest thing to do is the right thing to do, okay? Which is, say, for example, saying goodbye to someone you love who is very harmful to you. So actually going through with the act is what will build the self-trust and the confidence, but that is often the hardest thing. So these two parts work together to create what I call a self-trust muscle, okay? Firstly, knowing what's right for you, and secondly, acting in accordance with that. Now, this kind of movement of self-trust where you have, understanding what your needs are and then acting in accordance with that is kind of a skill that you learn over time. It's going to be under practice at the start, but the only way to grow self-trust is to actually start with both of these, okay? Our body is not going to trust us unless we are actually following through and acting in accordance to what you know to be right for you. Then as you practice this cycle and get feedback on the process, you're probably going to do it imperfectly for a while, then you might get better at it. This muscle is going to strengthen, much like you would be building muscle at a gym. Confidence is then going to come and the whole process kind of gets faster and easier and there's less friction and you just become a more confident, self-trusting person. But you need the courage to start setting the boundary at the start, speaking up when you know you should, walking away when you know you need to. Those first kind of steps where you know you've got to get the courage to do what's right for you is going to kick off this self-trust process. Now, I want to let you know that it's really common for people not to trust ourselves because we often don't follow through with what's right for us. But I just want to unpack why you don't trust yourself and like where this comes from. So picture the part of you that always self-abandons to be like a dog that you've just rescued, right? When I rescued my dog Lily, we didn't have a bond, right? I couldn't trust her to go off on her own and come back when she was off the leash. Sometimes she'd even try to run away. But with time, I was tending to her needs, feeding her, giving her comfort, making her feel safe, and like I was trustworthy and reliable. Our bond then strengthened, and she came to realize that I'm a safe person who's going to always meet her needs. She doesn't need to run off to try and get her needs met elsewhere. And now I trust her most of the time when she's off the leash and we have this really strong bond. Okay, now you haven't built your inner bond yet, okay? The inner part that abandons you does that because it doesn't trust you, right? It feels ignored, it feels disrespected. You've been pushing down and ignoring her emotions and feelings and needs for too long, and that trust has been broken. So you haven't yet proven to her that you know how to keep her safe and will keep her safe. She thinks she's better off with your toxic ex or anyone else but you, right? And you probably struggle to be alone because of this kind of inner turmoil, right? You're not comfortable with being alone, or you've never really been alone, you're always in relationship, because this kind of internal connection's lacking. So part of this process of building self-trust is to provide space to listen to her needs, to love her, to tend to her, to prove to her that you are paying attention now, and over time and being consistent, that self-trust muscle will grow and strengthen. So that is step one. Step one is listening to your needs, right? Now, the main issue that I hear from you in my audience is that, how do I know what to listen to, right? I love him, there's a great connection, but he's also toxic and unhealthy. There's a part of you that loves him, right? And there's a part of you that knows he's not right for you, okay? So which voice do I listen to, right? Which one's intuition, which one's anxiety, which one's fear, which one's trauma? There's this kind of internal confusion. So I'm going to show you how to move around that and get clarity on that. In this example, just looking from it from an outsider's perspective, it's obviously your intuition that knows he's not right for you, okay? Like, if he's actually gone and done things that are harmful to you, if he's hurt you, that is a pretty good logical fact that he is not right for you. And there'll be a part of you that knows that too. Often it is your gut or your intuition. And then there's this other part of you that is loving him, right? That there's this connection there. And do you notice when I say that, and I remember feeling this way, your kind of body contracts and you kind of, it's this kind of clinging, pushing, pursuing feeling in the body. This is actually not love, right? When it's an unhealthy person, this is actually fear and trauma that is attached to this person that overrides your intuition. Now, I'm going to repeat that. If you don't believe me, I'm going to explain, because you might be thinking, hang on, how can fear and trauma be a loving part? That doesn't make any sense. If you're in love with someone who is toxic for you, who is unhealthy, who's lied to you, gaslit, cheated on you, all those awful things, but you're still in love with him, you have what's called maladaptive attachment to them, right? They're your primary attachment figure, and you haven't attached to them in a healthy way because they're not a healthy person for you. A healthy, securely attached person would walk away, right? Wouldn't really think too much about it. They'd grieve it, but be like, okay, this person isn't healthy. I do not accept this behavior. But when you're clinging to a person like this, you've actually bonded with them from a place of trauma, which is what I call a trauma bond. Now, it's not that you're bonding through the trauma that's going on in the relationship. You're actually bonding through old trauma that's stored in your body that is being replicated in the dynamic you have with this person, okay? So the way we actually attach in this maladaptive way has very little to do with the actual person we're attaching, and mostly to do with our old attachment blueprint that was formed in our earliest relationships, or, you know, the accumulation of unhealthy or toxic relationships. And that old trauma is stored in the body. So if you had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable, or who themselves were toxic, or maybe they were loving but they just didn't make you feel seen, heard, and safe enough of the time, you would have developed some kind of insecure attachment to them to get your connection needs met, right? So you valued connection over authenticity and listening to yourself, because connection was a need of yours to survive in the family kind of container when you were young. And you learn this skill to stay safe, to, you know, this is a very intelligent skill that we learn, and we're not aware of this. This is all kind of unconsciously happening. This allows you to develop and feel a sense of safety, even though it's not inherently safe in the family environment. And you then learn that is the way that you then attach in your adult relationships. You don't know any different, right? So this becomes your attachment, as I said, maladaptive attachment. And you then go into and are attracted to people that make you feel the same way that your parents did. And this is what I referred to as a trauma bond. And this is where you're not seen and you're not heard, or you're feeling rejected in some way, but the love and connection is more important, so you don't leave them, right? There's that kind of clinging, and the bond becomes all about safety because of the trauma in your body that you're trying to resolve and trying to get safe by connecting with them. Therefore, that part that actually loves him is actually in trauma response at that moment. It's not a healthy attachment. So discerning and understanding these different parts within you is how we're going to actually develop self-trust based on what we listen to and and what we don't. That leads me into step 2, which is identifying what is best for you, right? Identifying which part and which energy is best to listen to, right? And so this kind of answers the question, how do you know whether it's healthy intuition or whether it's anxiety, fear, or trauma? I have a very simple tool for you to use so you can do this. And if you know me, you know my work, I'm all about working with the body and working somatically. And it is literally by paying attention to how you feel in your body, all right? So when you entertain one of those thoughts, how does your body actually feel, right? And this is a bit of a strange question, but just 2 things. Does it feel contracted, right? Remember that clinging feeling, or does it feel expanded? Now, if you've ever seen one of those children's toys that children breathe with, the kind of expanding, contracting ball, imagine that this child's toy is actually your body. Does the thought or idea contract your body, or does it expand it? And you need to take time to get to know the nuance and the signals in your body so that you can pay attention to those slight shifts and changes. And you also probably need to get into a more comfortable and relaxed state. If you are dysregulated most of the time, if the body is contracted most of the time, you're not going to know the difference between contraction and expansion because you are in contraction. So allow yourself to get safe in the body, take some, do some meditation, do some breath work, do whatever you need to kind of down-regulate the nervous system, and then start to pay attention to the nuance of the body signals that are going on. Now, use this skill to explore what thought and feeling makes you feel what, right? Use these body signals to identify what is actually best for you. And you may not be able to react in real time. This is a skill that I've been developing over a very long time, and sometimes often still need a bit of a timeout to just really think on it and feel into it as well, because feeling into it is really knowing whether something is right for us or not. So then step 3 is then obviously to act in accordance with your best interest, right? This is the other half of the muscle. Once we know what is and isn't right for us, we need to then actually follow through with what our body is telling us and what we have come to understand is right for us, okay? Now, this might mean a really big change, like someone you've been dating and you really love and, it's clearly not right for you. That's going to be a big change to leave them, and you may not be ready to do that. So start small, right? Start leaning into acting in alignment, saying the things that are in alignment with you, doing the things that are in alignment with you. If you don't want to do things, don't do them. Set those kinds of boundaries. The reason I encourage you to start small is because big changes can actually cause more unsafety in the body than needed, right? And can cause this kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. We don't want that to happen. We want to just lean very gently into starting to act in accordance with our actions, with what we know is and isn't right for us. So think of minute ways that you can speak up for yourself, that you can express a preference. And you don't have to start with the person you're dating. You can just start with like someone at a restaurant or wherever. Like when someone asks you what you would prefer, really listen to the body and follow through with that. Start setting boundaries with people in your life that are safer, right? So it's the repetition of these tiny, small adjustments that are going to course correct your self-trust, and your body's going to start picking up on that you're actually acting in alignment with what is right for you. It's telling these inner parts that I'm looking after us now, like I'm here for us now, I'm listening and I'm finally acting. And also bringing self-compassion to it, because you are going to stuff up. It's not a perfect thing to do. Like, it's not a perfect science. We do need to make mistakes, and making mistakes can often be very valuable because they can tell us why it is important to act in alignment or act more in alignment with us, because we can see the consequences internally of not speaking up for what's right. So confidence and this self-trust really takes time, just like building a bond with a dog that you've rescued, right? And eventually that inner bond is going to be so strong that you have certainty that you will always act in your own best interest, right? You will always trust yourself to do that. I have that within me now, is that if I ever even think about not acting in alignment with what's right for me, I can't even tolerate the energy in my body that would produce. It feels like a piece of rotting food, right? I just couldn't tolerate it. So I have that level of self-trust, and that ease within my body that's been established there, that internal relationship is strong. So please make sure you have self-compassion while you go through this tool. When you make a mistake, it is inevitable. Mistakes are a part of growth. If you were to not make any mistakes, you wouldn't actually be like improving at all. And this muscle needs time and space to grow. So go slow with new connections, go slow in your life, and give yourself enough time to listen to that inner feedback and to really get to know what your body is telling you. And if you would like direct help with learning this inner skill, this is what I teach my clients inside my program, Heal Your Heart School. So I'd love to chat with you about the possibility of me guiding you further along in this journey. You can click the link on my calendar below to book a call to speak directly to me. In the meantime, there are some next step videos here for you to watch so you can learn further skills to having an incredible relationship to yourself. And for now, I'll see you in the next video.